You all set? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Litchfield Board of Selectmen meeting for the evening of July 25th, 2016. Please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As you'll probably find out shortly, the computer system here at the town hall that controls the video recording is having a problem, so this is going to be recorded and it will be put up on YouTube, I guess it is, John? So unfortunately, we'll be seeing this after the fact. My apologies. First order of business is a review and approval of consent items. For consent items, we have the July 11th, 2016 meeting minutes, July 11th, 2016 non-public meeting minutes, accounts payable manifests for 7/19/2016 in the amount of $80,948.62, and for the 26th of July, 2016 in the amount of $21,663.73. We have payroll manifests for the 21st of July in the amount of $49,319.17, and for the 28th of July in the amount of $53,735.84. We have approval of a junkyard license renewal for Warren's Auto Body, one intent to cut, tax collector reconciliations as well as town clerk reconciliations, both for the month of June. Are there any members of the board who wish to remove anything from the consent the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion?
So move. Second? Whatever.
You guys want to arm wrestle about this or something? Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Selectman Lemire, seconded by Selectman Brunel. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 4-0-0. Selectman Perry is running a little bit late and should be here momentarily. Public input is going to occur no earlier than 6:30. First item under business is Mr. Andrew Collins, Esquire, III, to represent the Recreation Commission and present some use of impact fee approvals. Andy? A request, I should say.
And I'm Kurt Schaefer with Litchfield Baseball.
And Mr. Schaefer, welcome.
Thank you.
If you recall, the last time we came before you, we had a fairly well sketched out idea of what we were looking to do. We've gone through a couple steps since then, gotten some better numbers or more concrete numbers. We also had met with the planning board, so we did vote at the last Recreation Commission meeting to go ahead with the project as we had outlined it at the commission meeting. We got approval to ask for up to $108,000 of impact fees, understanding that there isn't that balance right now, but basically we wanted to have enough to do phase 1 and phase 2, and then be able to come back in the spring or in the summer and request more if it is available for phase 3. We're hoping to not have to do that. We're hoping to be able to do phase 3 off of fundraising and other aspects. So I don't know if you guys had questions on.
Mr. Selectman Lemire?
Just curious, the planning board was all set?
The planning board, we had made one slight change. We were going to try and do more of a grass parking area for one of the neighbors, his concerns. The planning board basically advised us against doing that simply because, just for a safer parking surface to have gravel down. The one thing that they did have us do is look into possibly putting some plantings on, I believe it's the north side of what's going to be the parking area, because he's got a tree line that's kind of thinning out as it is, dying off, just to create more of a buffer. So we've put in a budget. We've put into the budget $1,400 for some bushes for that. Kurt also has found some nice pines that are currently brush that we're gonna be clearing, that we can probably replant to sort of start that buffer up. So those were the two concerns.
So that's good. As long as the planning board, reviewed that and was, I mean, I know they don't have to, and it was just, courtesy item also. And
No, it's good, because we'd rather do it
and then,
now.
you're right, it helps you with ideas, and, they've been doing that for a while, so thank you.
The other thing to note too is that during the planning board, we announced it as a public meeting for all the abutters to comment if there was any feedback, and I don't know if there was anybody here from the abutters, was there,
Yes, there were two.
too? So the public's well aware of the project and the scope, and feedback obviously taken.
Do you know what the total amount of the impact fee account is at right at this moment?
Was it 85,000?
$89,684.
$684?
$684.
But there is 500 set aside
Correct.
for something at Sawmill, so there's $500 less available to us than the account balance.
Okay.
Right, when the commission closed out that project, they left $500
They left
for
$500.
finishing a wall on one of the buildings down there.
So 89,184.
Yeah.
When the original sawmill came in front of the board, I made a motion to approve that with impact fees and to retain funds out of that. Has the board taken a motion to rescind that as of yet? In other words, what we're gonna do is just capture all the fees coming in. Now, if that's done, I just wanna make sure that we just close that out, that's all.
Yeah, the mechanics, I think, when they originally came, one of the things we said, they had to close it out, the project on their side, so they did that at the last meeting, so I think we still have to do, we have to, as a board, a motion that the project's closed, remaining $500, the rest is now open for other projects. Whatever that mechanic, the proper mechanics are on that. Cause I don't think we did it.
Any other questions of the board? Okay, so Andy, right now, the $500 is for Sawmill, right?
Correct.
And that already exists in the account, it's just gotta be set aside to,
Right.
is that sufficient, 500, or is it gonna take a little bit more, or?
They said they said 500 is plenty it's just to finish off the back of the shed, I believe.
It's back of the shed, yeah.
Okay. Anything else you guys have? No?
I mean, the numbers, just to let you know, right now, for phase one and phase two, which is really to get the playable surfaces and is 95,726. Baseball has already fundraised and committed $8,000 towards the project. So right now, and for lack of we've sort of budgeted for worst case scenario and everything. We're hoping to be able to save, wherever we can, donated labor, whatever. So that would just leave us with a balance of 87,726 to get the phase one and phase two done.
Okay, so what you need, just to make sure I got your numbers correctly, you need $108,000 total
For all three phases, yes.
for all three phases. You're looking to get approved for 89,684 now.
Well, I guess it would be 89,184.
I'm sorry, you're right,
The 500 was already.
minus 500, so you need the 89,184 with a, what do I wanna call it?
Not to exceed, maybe?
Well, a, reserve of the difference up to
Contingency.
108,000 total, right?
Correct.
So I'll make a motion that the Litchfield Board of Selectmen rescinds the ceases the prior approval of the Sawmill Brook, impact fees, with the exception of $500 that will be retained in the account to finish up work on that, and appropriates a total of $108,000 in impact fees, of which $89,184 existing will be used for Phase 1, and the difference will be used from any future impact fees collected up to the $108,000 amount. Does that make sense?
I know what you're saying. Can we do that? Is it,
Maybe it should be.
what I'm saying, that we're appropriating money we don't
We did it
have?
for Sawmill, though.
We
You
did it
did?
for Sawmill.
Okay. I mean, I'm just double checking. I'm not against it. I'm just making sure that we can.
Is there a second?
Second, I'll second, sure.
Seconded by Mr. Brunel. He jumped first on this one.
Go ahead, no
Discussion.
problem.
So what I'm trying to do is retain $500 in the
Right.
existing Sawmill account, appropriate the $89,684 from existing impact fees, and reserve up to $108,000 in future fees for a total. Go.
Two things. First of all, they're requesting 118,000, not 108. Second of all,
He said 100.
You said 108, but
Yeah.
is that the number?
That's what we approved at our rec commission meeting.
all right, well, I was looking at 118, that's,
Well, it's a good thing to bring up, especially,
it's in the letter, so.
I'd rather know about it now than later.
The second thing I was gonna say is, we have been trying to restrict ourselves from committing to future money. So
Okay.
since there is enough money in there for the first two phases, which is ultimately what's needed right away, I don't think it would be undue on them to approve that amount today, and then come back when you're ready to do the next phase and get the balance of the money. Then we don't have an open account like we're dealing with right now for Sawmill.
That's fine with me. Do you want to amend the motion?
Go ahead and amend it. I think the commission knew that may potentially happen, that they would get funding for the first two phases, understanding the project scope is X. The concern was coming and asking for more money for a project they started, not making sure it's clear that it's actually three phases and we expect the cost to be X, and not, so it all falls in impact fees.
So in light of amending the motion, I would amend it to read 89,164 of current impact fee use.
Why 164?
Well, I'm trying to read your number,
184.
184.
I'll give you the $20.
Wow.
Okay, so you amend it to a maximum, and that any future funds they'd have to come back for?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Okay, discussion on the amended motion.
Good luck, Deb.
Hearing, hearing none. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Now the amended main motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 500 for both.
It also cleans it up, so if you did need the 118, when you come back, it takes that out of question now.
That's good. Hopefully it's a lot less.
Hopefully.
Thanks for the work you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thank
Can
you.
I, Andy, can I have a copy of the new numbers?
Sure.
I guess the numbers I shared with the board was from the meeting, your last time they met with the board. It sounds like they changed.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll just keep it here on file. Unless you want to email it to me.
There you go.
Ma'am, did you have anything on this that you want? Okay. Okay. Next item.
Have a good one, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Next item is administration of special detail revolving fund. And for this discussion, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Troy Brown. And Troy, if you can go through the numbers. Now, what I'm asking the board, if we can do this, is to hold questions until the end, because if we start to go off track on this, it's gonna get much, much more difficult than really it needs to be. So if you look into your webpage, the
Special detail.
special detail should be,
This here.
yes.
It should
Right.
open up. So, instead of doing a PowerPoint, I just did multiple spreadsheets. So I'll just be going through the tabs at the bottom. We're going through. And throughout discussion, I just want to make you aware that I'm trying to capture some historical information, what our current practices are, and then sort of some forecasts of where we find ourselves at the end of the year, if we make certain changes and versus if we don't make certain changes. In order to do that, I made two assumptions, and I consulted with the police chief, and this assumption is, one, all these numbers are calculated on the basis that we believe we are going to complete 2,500 hours of detail hours this year. And we believe we're going to complete at least 1,600 hours of cruiser hours. So all these numbers are calculated on that assumption. The trend is looking as if we're going to meet those goals. As you know, in the prior years, the numbers, those hours were much less. As we, I just want to jump all the way to the end. One of my conclusions is that in order to be able to meet the needs, the cost of running the special detail program for the town, and also trying to meet the agreements that we made with the police union, it appears that we would need to change the allocation of the police cruiser charges. So we'll jump into it earlier where you'll see I'm comparing what we currently charge, $15 per hour. And all those funds are captured and go to the general fund revenue. I've determined or calculated that in order to try to balance everything, we would determine that the cost of running the two police cruisers is about $4.03 an hour. So when we start off earlier, you might see us comparing the $15 an hour to the $4.03 an hour. If that makes sense. Currently, right now, just a snapshot of the special detail fund balance as of June 30th. We have, for assets, we have cash in the amount of $23,162. Accounts receivable, meaning those are outstanding bills. They've been sent out, we have not collected them. Some of these may have come in, but again, this is as of June 30th. So we have a total asset of $62,264. We have liabilities in the amount of $60,520. And we also calculated out what the balance of the $1,000 match for the 457 retirement matching. This is the town's portion. Some officers have received the full $1,000. This is the balance of those officers that have not worked enough hours or made enough contributions to leverage the $1,000 match. That sums up a total liability of the fund of $66,231. So a snapshot on this particular day of June 30th, the fund balance would be a negative $3,966. Again, that's factoring in the fact that we have the liability of the $1,000 match.
Just to clarify, that doesn't take into account the second
It does
1,000?
not, no.
Okay.
The next tab, 2016 activity. And this was the one where I just wanted to mention that where the $4.03 an hour came from. We'll get to that at the end of towards the end of this presentation. But for the first table, year-to-date summary of activity. So we've had a total hours, 1,395 hours, billable hours of detail. We've had non-billable work, the amount of 96 and a half hours. And the cruiser has been out there 914 hours. So that's just to give you an understanding of how busy the department's been. And we expect this trend to continue throughout the summer and late into the fall. Of course, one of the busiest time of the year is when Spooky World's doing their haunts, the Mel's. Revenues that have been billed out, $90,371, and cruiser billable hours, 13,713. So a total of $104,000 in revenue. And then, as for expenses, these expenses are for wages that we pay the officers, the cost of the first 457 match in the amount of $7,599, our workers' comp and unemployment reimbursement to the town, $1,057,260 for unemployment, New Hampshire State retirement contributions, the FICA contribution, Medicare, and our admin fee, which is at 5%, that's $3,128, and the cruiser fee at $15 an hour at $13,713. So with the revenues to date and expenses to date, you can see the fund is running negative $1,469. The thing that I want to point out here, and as we'll be discussing later, is I took a look at how we calculate a couple different things. One was workers' compensation, another was unemployment, another was the admin fee, and the last was the cruiser fee. We consulted with our insurance company, and we discovered that a practice that we need to start to implement is that on an annual basis, we need to work with the insurance provider, and they can recalculate the percentage that it costs for workers' compensation and unemployment. Both those numbers have been reduced, and they've been incorporated into the formula here. The admin fee, again, in both tables, is shown at 5%. I just wanted to show you that if the town, if you agree with my calculation of what it costs to run the cruisers, which I've calculated to be $4.03 an hour, if that amount reflected what we would transfer to the general fund, your fund balance would be $8,559 opposed to negative $1,004. The next sheet is, you've seen this before, just a historical graph and some data that just shows back to year 2012, where you had a really healthy fund balance in the amount of $35,000, and brought it right up to year 2015. You can see the fund balance has continued to decrease down to an amount of $3,200 in 2015. It's not a bad thing, because a revolving fund is really supposed to be an in and out account. It's nice to have a sort of a buffer fund balance, just so as you're in between collecting revenues. But this fund is not, the purpose of the fund is not to make money. It's not to have a $100,000 balance of unassigned funds. It's supposed to cover your costs of providing the program. The only thing I want to point out is that the trend has been decreasing, and I have a feeling that as we go through the rest of this information, if certain changes are not made on how we administer and appropriate funds, we will see the fund depleting. The next one, historical changes. The purpose of this data is really just to show you where we've changed the hourly rate, the invoice rate, the rate that we've charged for the police officer, and the other one that's really changed a lot is the New Hampshire State retirement. So you can see that if you go back in 2011, the town was billing out at $55 an hour. The officers were making $41.88 an hour, and our contribution to New Hampshire State retirement was 19.95%. If you move all the way forward to 2016, our current rate is $64 an hour. The officers make $44.90 per hour. New Hampshire state retirement pretty much doubled at 26.38%. And another thing that's really important to realize is that the information that I have to date is that New Hampshire state retirement contribution for the employer's contribution will increase next year from 26.38% to 29.43%. In the last right-hand column, I use the term unassigned. So when we calculated out the rates and our cost, contributions to taxes, you can see that currently, right now, 2016, we, for every hour an officer works, the town generates $3.52, which is really designed to be used towards the 457 match. There's no other commitment for it. In 2017, with a change to the New Hampshire state retirement, that would be decreased to $2.15. The next sheet, I just wanted to verify, I did a survey of communities that I felt were comparable to the town of Litchfield. They were in the same geographic location, where, you know, I can see these officers, you will see them in other towns doing the same type of work. The average town rate was $57.41 an hour. The officer rate average was $43.24. The cruiser rate was $13.88. As you can see, I highlighted Litchfield. We're at $64 for a town rate, $44.90 for the officer rate, and $15 for the cruiser rate. So in all three categories, we are above the average. We're not the most expensive, but you know, we're at that point where we heard from the police department and the police chief that if we started to adjust the town hourly rate or the cruiser rate, we would be the possibility of outpricing ourselves and making it difficult for Litchfield to be eligible to receive details from other communities. The other thing I wanted to figure out, because we've had a lot of discussion on admin fees, and this is where the survey's really just incomplete. Every community that I contacted had a different story. What I call an administrative fee didn't meet the same definition of what they had for an administrative fee. So some towns like, oh yeah, we have an administrative fee. It's whatever's left from the difference of what we pay out, you know. And then some towns truly had an administrative fee where they had calculated out what they needed to charge as an hourly rate, cover all their costs, and then on top of that, they would charge, say, a flat fee of $5 an hour. So the problem with that is every town is different. I just wanted to point that out. You're not going to find any conclusive data on administrative fees. The next sheet is my attempt of trying to determine what an hourly cost of running a cruiser for detail. Interesting exercise. So again, this is all based on the assumption that we're going to have 1,600 hours, billable hours for detail services. What in calculating the cost, what's it cost to have, you know, the cruiser? So we know that we just recently sold a couple of the cruisers, traded them in. So the acquisition fee was $850. That's what the chief received. So I calculated out that we have two cars with a market value of $850 each over a 2-year life cycle. I'm told that the changeover cost when we have we're changing, you know, a frontline vehicle to special detail, it costs about $250 to change that vehicle over, to remove the equipment, and so that we can change it over to a special detail vehicle. And then you have depreciation of the vehicle at $850. Again, it's just, we expect these detail cars to last for about 2 years. Fuel, we, using the internet, found a website, said the vehicles would burn about 0.39 gallons per hour. I know the hour, what we pay for gas right now is a little less than $2.15 a gallon, but over, an average of time, I use the number of $2.15 per gallon. And that calculated out to be about 84 cents per hour. Maintenance, we have two categories here. Maintenance would be just the oil changes, state inspections, and any minor, repairs, like a light bulb or something. And then you have actual repairs. And basically, the chief informed me that sort of have an unwritten rule that they don't spend any more than $1,000 on repairs per vehicle. And it all depends on timing. But just say you lost the air conditioning unit and it's September, they are not going to repair it because they know that vehicle is going to be swapped out in the spring. So, but basically rule of thumb is we don't do any repairs that exceed $1,000. So we gave an allowance of $1,000 per vehicle per year. And again, we consulted with our insurance company to determine what the cost of insurance would be, and that worked out to be about $350 per car. Those are my numbers and how we calculated the cost on an hourly basis at $4.03. If you multiply that out by the 1,600 hours that we're estimating the work, we would generate $6,441. Okay, the next spreadsheet will probably confuse you. But what I attempted to try to do here was just try to figure out the worst case scenario. And that would be, I just asked the question, what if a police officer only worked the minimum number of hours that's required to leverage the town's $1,000 match? We don't have any officers that do that, but you could have, it's a possibility. So you can see it takes an officer at $44.90 per hour. They need to work 22.27 hours. That would generate $1,000. Once they've done that, the town is obligated to match that first match of $1,000 to the 457 account. And so then you can see we just calculate out the payroll taxes. And I can't see the last number there, but it's 1,200 something. There it goes, $1,297. I simply divided the 1,297 by 22.27 hours. So that worked out to be $58.24 an hour. And that's basically how I calculated what we should be collecting for the first, 22.27 hours that an officer works to at least cover the minimum liability. I don't know if this information is useful in anyone, but I mean, it just goes to show you that, the more hours, we've heard this, the more hours everyone works, the more healthier the fund is and the more revenues that are generated to cover the matching requirements. In reviewing this, I did fail to mention at the start another constant that I built into these sheets is we have only a few officers, 3 of them, that do not contribute to New Hampshire State Retirement when they do a special detail. So when they work a special detail, the 457 matching revenue that's generating is much higher. It's something like $15 per hour. So all of these are generated or calculated on the fact that it's a more senior officer that's paying into the New Hampshire State Retirement.
Just to clarify, the 5824 is not That's only for the 457
It's
match,
just the 457, if,
not to pay the officer, just for the 457.
it's, the next tab, 457 group cost per hour. Purpose of this calculation is to determine if everyone works all the hours they need and contributes up to $2,000 into the 457 fund, their own fund. What is the total cost to the town? And I determined that total cost is $30,320. And then we just did two tables. We have to meet our first obligation of the $1,000 match, a calculation of 1,500 hours, 2,000 hours, or what we're expecting to do this year, 2,500 hours. And you can see the cost to raise this money would be $6.58 per hour if they work the 2,500 hours. And then the second 457 match, a little less, and the reason is we have two officers that are not in the union, they have their own contract, and they're only eligible for a $1,000 match. They're not eligible for the second 1,000. And that's the only reason why it's reduced. Okay. So, the next spreadsheet, here's where I was talking about the different officers. So we have police officers that were hired, this is blocked, prior to, is it June 1st, 2013? Whatever it is. They're the ones that are required to pay into the New Hampshire State Retirement. Ones hired after are not required. And then all of our retired officers that are working 32 hours or less, they're not paying in as well. And this is where these are the current rates right now. 457 match, that last second to the last column. When an officer works a detail for us right now, this is the amount of money that's generated per hour that they work. So you can see the first one, the 457 match, they generate, so in that scenario, they generate $3.52 an hour towards the 457 match. If you go back to the group cost, and we did, calculated 2,500 hours for the whole group, we need $12.13 an hour. Okay, so now I'm going to jump to administration cost. I talked with the police department and town hall staff, and we both sort of agree that given the time of year, we think about 35 weeks out of the year is when we see activity. And there's no way really to nail this down to be 100% accurate. For the most part, we think combined with all the staff's assistance and doing their different jobs and administering the program, it's about 1.5 hours a week for the police department and about another 1.5 hours a week on the town hall side. So that worked out to be at 35 weeks, about 105 hours a year. And that worked out to be about 5% of that time compared to a year. So it does verify, I think, you know, I don't know, there's probably other ways that you can try to get to, you know, calculate your employees' percentage of time spent. But I didn't think this was a bad way to calculate it. The bottom line is, to administer the program, there is a lot of work that's involved on the police side and the town hall side. And the town needs to be collecting some funding to help offset that cost. Open this.
Is it time for questions now?
I only got just a couple more.
Just gonna forget all my questions, that's all. That's the
Yeah.
point. I'm not forgetting,
You won't be. All right, two more spreadsheets. Second to last, the officers eligible for the second 457 match. So right now, this is just a snapshot of as of June 27th. We have officers that have worked the hours, they've made the contributions, they're eligible for the second match. We have not granted that second match. And I know I've been contacted by the union. Last Friday, I had a meeting. It was not planned or scheduled, but Mr. Macarone, who was the union representative of our local unit, came into the office, sat down and talked to me and told me that, you know, the unit's very concerned about the fact that the ones that have worked the hours in their minds are eligible for the second $1,000 match, have not received that match. And I explained to him that the board is working on, you know, understanding the management of the fund, and we're seeing what we can do to just make sure we're managing the fund properly. But I can tell you, and I told you, as of right now, we don't have the funds available to pay the officers. And so, you know, there are a lot of outstanding bills, and the fund's actually, you know, is a negative balance. So even if everything was perfect, I couldn't authorize those second $1,000 matches, especially where the first $1,000 matches haven't been awarded. So I felt that the priority of the town is to make sure all the $1,000 matches, the first match, is granted before we get into the second matching. So I came up with three options. The last spreadsheet. Option number one, based on the calculations I've done here today, if we do nothing, and I broke it out, I think it's easier really if you go down to the last table of option one. If we do nothing and we're obligated to pay the $2,000 match, I'm calculating that the fund balance would be a negative $21,000 at the end of this year. Option number two, again, going down to if we pay the $2,000 match, we would increase the detail rate to $71 per hour. And by doing that, our fund balance would be negative $4,021 at the end of the year. That would be paying out all the retirement matches. And then option number three is my recommendation that we don't change the rate for our hourly rate that we charge contractors, and we don't change the cruiser rate, but we use that number of $403 per hour is the number that the town captures to help offset the cost of running cruisers. And if you do that, we're still projecting that we're going to be about $4,000 short. However, with that being said, both option 2 and option 3, those scenarios, remember, are calculated based on the fact that only the officers that already contribute to New Hampshire State Retirement you know, are only generating that $3.54 an hour. We have some offices that generate, you know, $15 an hour, and usually, I think, those funds will help offset the negatives that we're seeing here, and we should be, you know, coming in right about zero, which again, a revolving fund is, we're just supposed to be having funds coming in and out. Now, if the board, we'll have a discussion, if the board is interested in changing the fee that we charge for the police cruiser, what I would suggest is that the 403 was just sort of a number that we used to try to calculate what our cost is. But I would like to see us manage the fund where when we have expenses for the cruisers, when we pay for gasoline for the cruisers, when we change a frontline cruiser over to a special detail cruiser, we capture whatever the value of that cruiser is and the fund pays for it. I'd rather have all the expenses charged to the fund so that it's very transparent. If the union wants to audit the books, they can. If anyone in the general public wants to get a listing of all the expenses, they can. I just think it's better accounting. And to be honest with you, it's the way we run all the other revolving funds that we have. We have recreation, we have the ambulance, and I forget the other one, cable.
You all set, Trey?
That's it. Yeah.
John?
I'm confused on a bunch of points, but we'll start with the cruiser rate calculation.
Okay.
Yeah, you got a spreadsheet you're working off of?
Yeah. it's
So we
called-
can all go to
It's
it?
called cruiser rate calculation.
That's original.
Yeah, that's what, no, this is his spreadsheet.
No.
So I actually think I think your way of calculating the cost makes perfect sense. It's not $15 an hour, it is some factor of that, and I think the 403 probably makes logical sense. What I'm confused as is this acquisition cost, the changeover fee, and the depreciation. Because I don't see, first off, there's no acquisition cost, the cost of the car is the car. We've already paid for this car, it's just moving from one function to the other. I don't understand why we're capturing that as an expense. The $500 fee, I think that's a huge swag, because this car is now being transitioned out of a frontline car and having a radio swapped over, and it's probably, the cost is actually buried in the swap over to the new frontline car. So we're calling out a cost that's sort of, in my mind, fictitious. Now, that's fine, I just, the first 850 acquisition cost doesn't make any sense, and the car is already fully depreciated. So why do we have those three costs?
Well, the acquisition cost, so I'm trying, what I did when I did this exercise, I'm trying to run the special detail program as its own business. And so we're offering a service, and we're offering police officers to direct traffic at a certain hourly rate, and there's a cost associated with that. And we've talked about, you know, how we capture those costs. And if someone's demanding an officer and a cruiser, somehow this business needs to acquire a cruiser. So I get back to my discussions I've had previously with the board. When the taxpayers purchased the police cruiser, they purchased that for general policing of the community. The reason we created a special revenue fund was because that's what it is. It's special. It's something unique. It's not about providing public service to the taxpayer. It's providing a need to someone who's demanding it. So they need a cruiser. And I'm thinking that you capture that cost of, well, the town has this cruiser, the taxpayers bought it, the taxpayers have the choice, they can either trade that in towards the purchase of a new cruiser and reduce the cost of buying a new cruiser,
By $1,000.
or this fund says, okay, we'll give the taxpayer, $1,600 for the cruiser. Now that cruiser is assigned to the fund, The fund is maintaining it, insuring it, and when you sell that cruiser one day for parts, if you make $500, the fund gets the $500, not the town.
I can accept that, I just, what's the second 850 for then? The car's already been depreciated. There's a
Just
residual,
because-
there's a residual
let's-
value.
Let's clarify, the value of the car, when it comes over, is not depreciated fully. The car is only online for 2 years, and then goes over to details, so it's not fully depreciated. There is a residual value to the car, which we experienced when we ended up taking and having the chief sell the car or trade in the car to purchase a new cruiser.
$1,000. Now, granted, those two cars are gone now as of today, I guess. The two cars that were in service as detail cars had a residual value of less than $1,000. That's why they were sort of kept. So, we don't, I guess I'm confused a little bit too, because we don't charge other town entities for our services because we're just passing money from one place to the other. So why are we doing it inside this detail fund? It seems like it's an accounting issue.
Well, first off, the details, first off, I wanna be clear, the cruises are town assets.
Correct.
Okay, they're not owned by the police department or the police officers, they're town assets. The police officers are using the cruises in order to carry out a function that really is for benefit of the officers, not necessarily the town, although there's an argument that can be made that the chief in his duties is saying that there needs to be some special consideration given to traffic control or whatever the case may be. The thing about it is what Troy talked about is we're trying to determine, right now, you've got a mishmash. You've got the cruises existing in the town budget, and Troy, I think, is of the opinion that what we ought to do is put everything together into this detail account and pull all the expenses and all the costs from that detail account to support those cruises. Because as the chief has said, that's what those cruises are designed for, is detail.
This is not unlike, I think, what they do in Manchester. They created what they called enterprise funds, like to run the arena, the country club, the ski area, and one other entity. And this is exactly how they run that. All of the expenses, all of the revenues are charged to that because it's an enterprise fund, and it's totally separate from the municipal budget. And so I think, Troy, I think you're certainly right on in your thinking. I certainly can't argue your figures here.
Yeah, I wasn't arguing
No.
the running.
Oh, no, I understand,
What
John.
I'm confused is there's the $850 acquisition cost, so we're gonna, basically, the fund has to pay $850 to the town to take a car asset over. And then we're depreciating it by $850, so we're charging the towns now getting another $850 for depreciation. I don't understand those two
But
values.
just, they have to require, listen, if the fund was really healthy, then, you never know. Maybe someone might think that it makes all the sense in the world to buy a brand new Volkswagen diesel engine.
Like I said, the car.
Refinance that, and pay it through the fund, and it'd be a lot better to have it sitting there idling than some V8.
I think bottom line to me is this logic makes perfect sense. I actually think the value, the 403, the total that you cost, it makes
It's
sense.
close.
I'm confused as to why we're charging ourselves money to move cars from one function to the other, and I don't see, to me, I believe the depreciation already happened in the car, and it could be different from one car to the other, because the residual value could be a whole lot less.
Because, again, I was trying to set it up, like you said, the proper terminology is like an enterprise fund, but I was looking at it as a business. Remember, if we migrate to this type of administration of the fund, the things that's been done in the past is that the fund, we used to just move $10,000 or $20,000 to the general fund or to a credit to the police department.
Yeah.
And the reason we did that was because that helped offset the purchase of new cruisers, brand new ones. And then we recycled them through and just, we gave them for special detail. But special detail already did make a contribution of about $10,000 to $20,000.
Okay.
Every year is different. So there was an acquisition cost.
So, like I said, now that I understand where you're going, I will question those two top dollars, the amount, but I'm willing to let that go. My second question or second topic, and I'll let someone else talk, is the administration cost. I know I got chastised the last time I got brought up, and people say I'm stealing money from the taxpayers versus funded, but when I look at your logic of what you're saying you're covering, I do not, you need to tell me where all these people touch this program. Because I can agree with you that in the police department, these folks do touch it because it's the scheduling and all that stuff. But when I look at the town clerk's office, where is their involvement in administrating the clerk process?
It's minimal, but we have to, when Donna collects the actual, so it all starts in the police department, and I had no idea. It really sort of starts off with the dispatchers and
I had the
the
same question, John.
sergeants. So between the sergeants and the dispatchers, they're working out,
Schedule,
the schedule.
yeah, yep, the coverage, yep, I get that.
So, and again, it's minimal time, but there's some time spent. And then it's really handed over to the administrative assistant. The administrative assistant is then, collecting, the payroll forms, getting that data, sending out the invoices, the money's coming in, it's handed over to Donna here at the town, in our office. She does her process with it, and then it's turned over to the town clerks. They're taking that and they're recording it and eventually making it to the bank.
But are we gonna start doing that with everything we do when we take cash? Because that's how every cash flow works in this building. So we're gonna start charging an administration fee to the building department to add on to the permit that takes the $10 because Donna handles the money, writes a receipt, gives it to the accountant, and then the accountant records it and brings it over to the town clerk? No, we're not. So why are we doing it here?
I'm just,
Well, because you've got a separate fund, John. This is a separate,
It's,
the others
only
are
reason-
funded by through the town budget. This is a separate operation, like an enterprise fund.
Yeah, but
You have to capture all of the costs.
what I'm getting at is that all these people are not involved in the process. They're part of it, just to bring the operation. The money doesn't even come over individually. It comes over with all the money that get handled that day. So you're not adding any more time to any one of these employee individuals. They're doing it in their day job as it is. So all I'm saying is reduce it a little bit and only maybe capture just the major players. Because I don't where's the treasurer? The treasurer's managing the fund. I don't see her captured in here at all. Right?
Right.
So if you look at the warrant that enabled this, the treasurer's in control of the funds. She should be in here also.
I think the point, the other point on this, John, is that if you even change just the 4% overall, it doesn't make much of a change or an impact on the rate anyways.
Well,
I mean, it's meaningless in terms of what the costs are.
yeah, I mean, it's 5%, and we've calculated what it is. It's it's almost $4,000, which is the shortfall of what the fund is if it stays the way it is. If you do the last third option, which I think is what my leaning would be, would do to option 3, because tracking the vehicle costs the right way and using that money to fund as we originally intended, the intent was. And I think this board needs this, I know my priority is to pay the union what we said we would do. But, I think if you lower this fee or flat it out, right, it's $353. So make it $1,000 flat fee, whatever it works out to be, and let the rest of the money drop to the bottom so that it actually can fund the 457, the second 1,000. Because you said earlier, this fund's not supposed to make money, and it's not healthy because we don't have a lot of hours. It'll eventually get healthy if we have a lot of hours and we don't have to pay all the higher fees. That's how we got there back many years ago.
Well, I think there's another argument that I would make that we got there because we weren't allocating our funds that we were collecting appropriately.
Probably very true too.
I think that,
Yeah.
But
I think
the
it's.
point of it is, even if you wipe this all out, overall, it's not gonna make a change and a difference. The argument that you're making about is it's the $4,000, the offset there. That's assuming that you take all of the money above and beyond the $4.03 that the cruiser costs the town, that we calculated, and apply that to paying the second $4.57
And that's what I'm
match.
suggesting.
And the point is, I don't think, and I believe, and maybe these aren't the exact right numbers, but they're close in my mind, we should be charging for the cost of processing this through the town hall. How much we can debate, and I don't have a problem with debating how much it should be, but I think we should be charging a vendor for the costs that it takes in order to set up the detail, run the detail, manage the books for the detail and everything else. I just don't think it should be a free ride for that vendor.
And I think I said earlier, I'm cool with the PD side, because I know there's a lot of hands that touch it there from a scheduling perspective and finding the resource and a lot of phone calls. I would just, in the town side, pick the key players and not capture every, to me, it's not extra work, it's work just during the day job when they're not doing something else. Or they're doing it as part of the closeout for the end of the day. And, so, you know, my thing is lower the fee to 1%. Make it 1% and let it fall through, and let the rest of it fall through the bottom.
I don't think, if you're asking me my opinion, I don't think that's the right thing to do, making it 1%, arbitrarily setting it to 1%. I think we should be doing a job of trying to estimate what it actually costs the town. Taking out, the town clerk tax collector side of stuff, there's an argument that could be made for that, that's fine, but I don't think it's gonna overall change. You may drop to 4.5%.
Yeah, and just so you know, nothing's tied, I just captured the hourly rates and cost of these employees, and nothing's tied to that 353. What I basically did was said, okay, 3 hours a week of admin time, 35 weeks out of the year represents 5%, and that's, so it's not 5% of the 353, it's just 5%.
Steve?
I'd like to point something out. If we go to the last sheet, under the options, okay? If you go all the way to the end, option 3, change cruiser from 15 to 403. That's the $2,000 match column. That says hypothetically we would be negative $3,969.55.
Hypothetically,
Okay? That is our max cost. If we work with that number, we know that's where we stand, correct?
Right.
Now go to the very first sheet.
Of the
the fund
fund
balance.
balance.
Yes. Nope, yes, the fund balance.
3,000.
Very first sheet. Oh, wrong one. Activity.
Oh, activity, okay.
As of right now, the way our activity tracks, okay? If we put the 403 in the general fund instead of the $15,
We have 8,000.
we're positive $8,559. I think all we have to do is change the 15 to 403, and we're probably gonna have enough to fund it full.
And here's the killer,
Well,
it's an
remember,
accounting
not all-
thing.
Not all the four, I think, I agree with you, but the reason the number's a little different is we haven't paid out all the 457 yet.
Right, I know that.
But the thing is, this
Because
is an
the
accounting
second
thing.
thousand of
Okay,
four fifty-seven
one
will
at a
be
time,
about
guys.
$15,000. So what I'm saying is, if we just change that cruiser fee from the 15 to the 403, going into the general fund, the way we're tracking today, it'll probably use the whole fund, but the way we're tracking today, we'd have enough.
So I think that's what
That's my-
Troy is proposing, okay?
I just wanted to point that out to everybody, because I think that got lost.
Yeah, but here's the thing, I brought this up last time, I think I talked to Troy about it too, is we're deducting the whole cost of the cruiser, and the argument was, that was, and I'm gonna use the word fluff because I have no other way to describe it, that was the buffer money that was hopefully fund some of these programs, or fund this program. Taking it out and deducting it right out of the butt line and making that line show negative was just an accounting game. It was showing us in the negative, we weren't in the negative. Because we shouldn't have been taking the full $15,000 or $13,000 and put it in the town bucket, because it didn't belong there to begin with, it belonged in the revolving fund.
Well, this
No,
all started.
that's incorrect.
Okay,
This all
I'm
started,
aware.
it all started last year, when we were towards the end of preparing the 16 budget, when I brought it to your attention that, you know, we're supposed to gross budget, and in the police department, we would have our gross number, but then we would have this credit, an offsetting credit in the operating budget. And I've never been taught that's the way you prepare municipal budgets. You always have your gross budget. If you have a revenue source that's gonna help offset that budget, you budget for that in revenues. So we changed the police budget, we had no offsetting credits, but we created a revenue line, and we captured 100% of the cruiser, revenue. And that's when, now we find ourselves, wow, we're taking all the $15 per hour and we're transferring it right to the general fund revenue. And that's why I'm saying here this evening, under option 3, I call it more of an administrative change. We're not changing the hourly rate of the officer or what the town charges.
Right.
We're not changing the cruiser rate. We're changing the allocation of what the town's gonna capture for the operating cost of the cruiser and what the balance would be used for the 457.
So, there is a key point that what Troy's saying, and I want to point out to the board, and make sure everybody understands, and that is the following, that when you do that, okay, what you are now saying indirectly to the union is that you're going to let them have access to the money that is collected for use of a town asset to offset their hourly costs. And that's fine, and I think for short term, the board's gotta do this. But there's 2 points. Number one, the next thing you will probably hear is that we should be offsetting costs for administration, that shouldn't be coming out, and that we should be putting that towards making this whole thing work as well. The other thing that I wanna make you understand is this will only work if you do this year. Once you end up in 2017, when the New Hampshire retirement system goes up to 29%, you are going to be pushing the boundaries here, and it probably will not work. Secondarily, okay, there's, I'm sure, going to be other expenses that are going to accrue here. That's going to be gasoline and everything else that's going to cost more, and you're going to be in a bigger hole. I think for short term, you can use the cruiser, I'll call it additional cruiser costs to offset some of this, but it is not a long-term option that the town can sustain because it won't work.
What happens if they continue tracking the way they're tracking, and they work just as many hours as they have to date for the rest of the year? There's gonna be twice as much or 3 times as much money in there.
And that's fine, it actually works to the town's advantage. The problem's gonna be when you get into a situation where the town goes back to normal, or the norm, where the amount of details drops. There were numbers that I was castigated for using of $500 to $600 and $500 to $600 an hour. Excuse me, let me repeat that. 500 or 600 hours of detail rate, which is what the chief had reported to this board at one point. And the problem is that if we drop down much below the 1,600 hours of cruisers and the 2,500, this whole thing goes out of whack. And you will actually end up not having enough money collected. So what I'm saying is, this only works for these particular circumstances that we're encountering this year.
See, it seems to me, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
So what I would recommend in also making the administrative change of the cruiser rate, I would also recommend $1.50 per hour addition onto the charge rate for the officer, because that would cover us for when the New Hampshire retirement system comes in effect. And only because we're handling this all now is why I would do it now, so we don't have to bring it back up next year when that change happens.
We
We're
can't do
already
that.
ready for it. Sure we can.
It's the police chief's responsibility to decide the rate.
No,
We
it's not.
do it.
We do it.
We did it last
That's
time.
why we're going through this.
If I remember correctly, at least I've been reminded that the chief has the authority to set the rate.
No, he has the authority to set the
Detail.
jobs, the details. He does not have the authority to set the rates.
Correct.
We actually have to have a public hearing,
Right.
change the rate.
If he had a
Well,
police
look at that.
commission, John, the commission could do that. But we are the
Isn't there
police.
wording in the contract that says?
The only
union
wording,
contract
the
says-
only wording in the contract says that we will pay the officers the rate of master patrol officer
49, yeah, whatever the 49
$44.
Yeah.
Now, that's the only stipulation, and Steve, yeah, I mean, there's multiple ways you can do this by adding it or whatever. it'll work either way.
But looking at Troy's survey, we're already higher priced than anybody else.
Well, that's what I'm
let's-
saying, you add
let's-
that up that.
Right.
Let's face
We're
this,
top,
do I care how much all the other towns are charging if we're losing money?
no, I
But they
get
came,
it.
but wait a minute, they came in and said if we go up, they're gonna lose Manchester, which is a good volume of rate right now.
They
Right,
didn't
see,
lose them, did
here's,
they?
No, if we go any higher than we are at now.
see, Manchester
No,
won't
seven.
pay
Okay,
our
one
rate.
at a time, guys. Brent?
Manchester, I'm under the impression Manchester will not pay our rate.
That's what they
They're
told
paying it
us.
now.
And,
Today's rate's fine.
That's what we were told.
right, and the thing is, if they don't, then all bets are off. You know, you can raise it, we'd end up having to raise it triple.
So,
And
I'm sorry to say, but this is where Frank's gonna like this one. This is part of the cost of doing business, because they're the ones that wanted the second $1,000 for the 457. And if it's gotta get paid and we've gotta charge more to do it, that's what has to happen.
I
Yeah,
love
but
you,
wait a
man.
minute. Wait a minute. It says that if basically the funds are available, no town funds are going to be expended. And you're saying they're asking for
Well,
it now.
so-
How are we going to know that
so-
until the
so-
end
Well,
of the
that's
year?
what
We
I'm
can't
saying.
pay
Whoa,
that.
whoa. Hang on. So let me just say one thing. I had approached the union and said that we wanted to sit down, that if they wanted to sit down and talk through this whole thing, we'd be glad to go through it. They wanted to have a meeting several weeks ago. I directed Troy to cancel the meeting because I wanted this information to be put together and presented to the board so that everybody could be working off the same page. I think what the path forward should be is that we present the same information to the union and then seek their thoughts on where we should go forward from here. That's my thinking.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
John?
No, I'm fine with the union knowing. I guess my question was regarding to the second $1,000. I know what the contract says, and I think they interpret it differently than we are.
Right.
Because in my opinion is that second $1,000 could not get paid out until the end of the calendar year when all expenses
That's
were
what
met.
my impression was too.
Well,
Jim.
it's
But how do
not,
we correct that? How do
it's
we
not
correct our-
specific in
It's
the
silent.
contract. It's
Right.
silent to that.
Right.
The problem is that, as Troy stated when he presented this, we had the union regional steward, I don't know what you would call him, Joe Mack, as I know him, come to town hall and talk to Troy, and apparently there's some feeling on the part of some of the members of the union that they're puzzled as to why we're not paying the second $1,000 right away. So I think the word has to get back, exactly this information goes to the union. Now that the board has this information, I'm comfortable that we should move forward with that. And I said, and I think secondarily, we've got to make sure the union understands the money doesn't exist today to do that second $1,000.
Even if you do option 3, the ones that met the second $1,000 today?
Well, we need to consider whether we go back and reverse the January 1, the accounting that's been done to date. That accounting is that we've transferred the whole $15 an hour over.
Right, 13.
I think Troy's proposal is we transfer over the $4.03. Okay?
Well, remember, I wanna actually do a direct spend from the fund, so.
Right.
Every gas bill, every tire bill, everything is just billed directly to the fund.
Well, that's what it should be doing
It should
anyway. but-
work out to about $6,000 a year is my, and maybe it's less some years for maintenance and stuff, you know.
Well, wouldn't we still have to appropriate the line? Like, I guess it would be a budget, it's a fund, right? But then how do we
Yeah.
manage that?
You're gonna have to show a transfer in the books of the asset out of the town to the fund.
They call it a journal
All of
entry,
that
I
stuff.
think. right?
Yeah,
that
yeah,
kind of
but
stuff.
the money should have just gone into the fund to begin with, but it's already been taken out
So-
once.
What
So
we've,
it's a
what
journal
we've gotta
entry.
be prepared to do is go to the union and tell the union exactly how we're gonna handle this. And my recommendation to the board would be that we agree that the cost of the cruiser is the $4.03, as best as we can anticipate or estimate today. And that amount of money, the difference between 403 and $15, is what we use going forward. But I wanna make sure this board understands that that's only gonna work today, and that we're gonna get caught, excuse me, you guys are gonna get caught starting next year on this whole thing, because this is gonna be an issue that, with changes in the New Hampshire retirement system and everything else, is just gonna blow up and it's not gonna work anymore. And you're either gonna have to change the rate or do something else. John?
So can we just, I asked the question on the second $1,000, because I read it differently, I think the union reads it differently. You folks have said that it's a solid understanding that when the funds are available. Can we get the union to agree that the second $1,000 is, it's a priority, we want to do it, obviously, but if we don't pay for our expenses, you're not gonna have cruisers to make the money, or you're not gonna be able to do details, there's no asset, there's no tools to do the assets. Make them understand that and say, yeah, come December, if you met the $1,000, the second $1,000 match, we will pay you in increments of that number too.
Right.
If you put $1,000 in, and all we have is funds for $500 for everyone a minute, we give you $500.
Well, I think that the
Can we
town,
clarify that?
I think that the town should present all this to the union and then work with the union and come up with a sidebar, I'll call it agreement, in terms of, the contract. And that is allowed for in the contract as to how the second 1,000 would be paid. You know, or does it get paid depending upon how much money's there? What's your name again?
Yeah. I absolutely agree
Greta?
with
Inga?
John's assessment of that, and that it was my impression too, when we were sitting there, is that you can't pay something you're not sure you're gonna have, and while it is a priority, the language says no town funds will be expended for the second match. So we just have to make sure that the integrity of the fund is maintained, and we can't really do that till December. And I think we have a productive discussion with them. I think, I would like to think that we don't necessarily make any changes tonight until we meet with them.
I don't think we should necessarily, and I would agree with you, make any changes. I think we should agree on, this is what the board believes is the best course of action.
Okay, but not do it until the outcome of the
Change
meeting.
How we account for it, because the accounting is, I think option 3, as Troy laid out, is really the bright way to do it, and not deduct the whole cruiser fund out. Because that's what's showing the fund to be negative, making everybody all get stirred up, right, because the numbers look negative.
I mean, you have a couple options. You don't do anything tonight, meet with the union, explain all this information to them so that they understand why we're proposing to do the change. Or 2, I believe the Board of Selectmen, it has nothing to do with the union. The Board of Selectmen has the management of this fund. We make changes because you have the right to do that. Then we meet with the union, explain the changes we've made, and start the conversation about, now how do we pay out the
Second 1,000.
the second 1,000? How do you envision it occurring? And we'll explain to you how we think we should do it.
Right.
And that's what we need to come to an agreement on.
Yeah, see, my thought is that we take the administrative change, because that is our right to do, and it's an appropriate accounting move, because we're deducting way too much money. We say we're doing that, the union knows now we're trying to correct the problem, because as far as they know, we've taken all the money and put it to the town.
The rumor on the street is that we're taking all the money out of the fund.
I know what the rumor is, and that's just
We're-
driving me crazy.
We're moving it to the general fund,
Right.
and they're doing
So,
all these hours.
Let's scoff that one now and go, yeah, we're gonna account for $4.03 an hour as operation money code for the cruisers, and that's what's gonna be expended for that. We make that move, and then we go, we need that sidebar. Here's what we understand, it's a priority, we get it, we wanna make it a priority. But if the fund is not solvable, if it doesn't have enough funding, we can't do it. And if we have money, are they willing to accept percentages of the dollar too? Because my thing is that we said 1,000. If we have 1,000, we match 1,000. But if we only have $250 for every officer who met the 1,000, we give them the $250. Our job's not to make money here, or be a profit center. But we've all said it's a priority for the employees. I can't imagine them not then saying no. I think they need to understand that this fund has to pay for all the maintenance, so that otherwise the asset, the tool is
Well,
not there.
What I've heard is that there are some thoughts that the town is illegally taking money to pay for the cost of the cruises, which is incorrect. I mean, I asked Troy today to dig up the warrant article that was approved, and it clearly says the warrant article that costs for cruises or costs of operation will come out of this fund.
Yeah, I think we're over accounting for it, that's the problem. We're taking the full $13,000 for the hours worked so far. If we go back and say, yeah, we're gonna take $4.03 an hour, that's more logical, reasonable.
I can buy that. I mean, if the whole point is just for correct accounting and not to make the fund solvent, I'm okay with making a change.
Well, the
Because
only
you make
reason-
a good point.
The only reason we're doing it is to make the fund solvent.
Right, but it's a proper accounting.
And I think,
Issue
it's
too, right?
important that we get a side agreement to deal with the year 2 and 3, because we can always make the first 1,000, I don't think that's gonna be an issue. If there's no details, they're not making money to put into the fund anyway.
First off, I don't see, well, maybe next year, there will be a certain amount of details because of the installation of water, if that happens or whatever. But in my opinion, there's not gonna be enough details to sustain paying a second $1,000.
And that's what I'm saying, I think we need to well, if there's not enough fund to sustain it, they wouldn't have the money
Under
to
the
put
current,
it,
under,
but they wouldn't have the
under,
money put into it neither.
I have no argument with you on that, absolutely. You know, they have to have the money to put into it.
And I don't think the union, if they fall short on the second 1,000, as long as they understand our accounting and administration, I think they're fine with it.
Yeah.
They know.
I
They've stated
agree.
it to me many times. We need to work, we need to generate the revenue so that we can earn that revenue.
Yeah.
But they just they don't agree with our current accounting.
And I think it's a good point that we make this available
So,
to them as quickly as possible.
so, Kevin, do you have any thoughts?
No, I agree with what everybody's, talked about. I mean, I think sitting down with them is probably one of the best things we can do.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
So, then I'm gonna make a motion that we accept option 3 as a plan.
If you do that, I just sent I sent a link,
A link.
or sent something, an email.
Special,
It's a proposed, some items that would be good to have entered into the record.
that's a whole lot more than option 3.
Well, I just trying to correct.
So you want me to do it this way?
If you,
Let me just read
if
it
you
first.
want, I'll read it out loud and then we can have a discussion.
Yeah, can we do that?
So what I'd like to have on record is that we continue, the town special detail rate for an officer shall remain at $64 per hour. The town special detail rate for a cruiser shall remain at $15 per hour. The town special detail rate administrative fees shall remain 5% of the officer's hourly rate. Miscellaneous expenses such as safety vests, uniforms, and equipment shall be charged from the special detail fund. New Hampshire State Retirement, Social Security, Medicare, workers' compensation, and unemployment shall be charged at current tax or premium rates. Actual costs for cruiser acquisition, fuel maintenance, repair, and insurance shall be charged from the special detail revolving fund. Revenues from the sale of the special detail cruisers shall remain in the special detail revolving fund. All cruiser fee revenues collected since January 1, 2016 shall be returned from the general fund to the special detail fund.
Now, just to make sure everybody understands, this consolidates all of our accounting into the special detail fund. That's the whole purpose of this.
So this evening, and for everyone listening, we keep talking about the 403 hourly rate, but that was just a number that we used to figure out what the
So,
cost would be charged to the fund. So we would do a direct billing to the fund.
Just as a question. Item number 8, all cruiser fee revenues collected since January 1, 2016 should be returned from the general fund to the special detail fund. Are you then gonna transfer money back out as the
So,
administrative
talk to
cost?
Karen, what we would do is, actually, she's only transferred 3 months because we haven't had the revenue available to transfer for the other 3 months. We would put the money back into the fund, and then we would go through our invoices and just charge the amount of gasoline and maintenance and repairs for those cruisers since January 1.
You wouldn't charge the 5%?
Oh, yes, we're still gonna be doing the 5%. It's just doing the cruiser. Because we've moved just a chunk of money, it was $15 an hour into the general fund. I wanna move that back and then take out actual cost.
Well, it's just that eight's reversing everything that's already been done, so that's why I was asking to make sure that we are getting our, let's say, our money back.
That's correct.
Yeah, because you're just gonna, you're basically gonna do a journal
So-
entry, put the money back to the fund and out.
Where does it say that we will, well, it says actual costs for,
Yeah.
shall be charged
Well,
from,
because-
okay.
He's estimating
Up
it's
above.
it's 403 is the actual cost, but. it could
No,
be
what
less.
all I'm saying is, one of these contains the fact that we will be taking the costs back out.
Yeah, it's
and that will
fine.
go to
And this way, the union, anytime the union wants a printout of the activity in the fund, they can have it. And all the revenue coming in and all the expenses going out should be documented.
So, yeah, so item 6 covers the actual, go in and get the money, the actual funding.
Yeah.
Right, I just wanted to make sure that was in there.
So I'll move that we adopt as reviewed.
I'll second the motion.
So we have a motion, we have a second, do we have any discussion? The only discussion I want to make sure everybody understands is this only works today. Something's gonna have to change going forward. Now, you guys are gonna be responsible for remembering what I said,
Yeah, I think the.
or I
important-
don't wanna have to come here and remind you that I said it.
I think the important part is working with the union to get that side agreement.
Right.
To deal with the next couple of years.
Yeah.
That's the only way it's gonna work, right?
Yeah.
They need to understand that second 1,000 is a priority, but if the funds aren't there, the funds aren't there.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries 5-0-0.
I know what took an hour.
Next item on the agenda is public input.
Oh, forgot about that.
Seeing as how there are no members of the public who are here, we will close public input and move on in the agenda. Administration of special detail, let's go back through this again. Draft earned time buyback agreement with Chief O'Brien. So what I would ask, Steve, if you can kind of review for the members of the public who are hearing about this for the first time, what this is all about, that would be good.
Okay. Troy, the first question I'm gonna ask, Troy, did we ever get?
We're not able,
Back from,
no.
No.
So we don't have the final revised draft agreement. We're just missing those 2 items.
is this
Should we
appropriate to
do-
really deal with
I was
until we
gonna say,
have the
c-
final?
Could we
From our
defer
council.
this then?
Yeah, I would say different.
Well, we're
Yeah.
gonna get into it one way or the other. The only thing I guess we can, if you wanna bypass it, if the board wants to skip this, that's fine. The only thing I
I think we
suggest
should
is,
table it until
I have
next
absolutely
meeting.
no issue talking about it. I just would hate to portray to people an agreement that is still
I agree.
not fully complete.
Move to table it to next meeting.
okay,
Second.
well, if you wanna withdraw, we'll just, unless you wanna go through a vote to table it.
It's up to you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll just go on, we'll bring it up the next meeting then.
Okay.
Next item is draft organizational chart, and I know, Brent, you were putting together a draft organizational chart. Do I see it on the side here?
Yep.
Where is it? Oh, there it is. And first off, last meeting, when we discussed this, I kind of rode you a little bit on this, and I just wanted to apologize for that, and it wasn't my intention to embarrass you or humiliate you or anything. I just wanted to, anyways.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that.
So if you can go ahead, you submitted an organizational chart. If you can go
Right.
ahead and review that with the board.
Yep, and I want to thank Troy for his efforts. We've been talking about it for 2 weeks, and, like I suggested, I go back and look into the generally accepted charts for town administrator. what we came up with is what you see in front. You know, the voters, the line goes directly from the voters to the Board of Selectmen. And you'll see the town administrator position off on the side from the Board of Selectmen. And this is how it appears in most org charts for a town administrator. If he were a town manager, that line, he would appear directly under the Board of Selectmen, and then all the departments directly under that. Since he is a town administrator, having him off to the side from the board like that allows the Board of Selectmen, who are the governing body of the town, to either take care of managing all of these departments and work with the town administrator, or if they feel comfortable, they can cede some or all of the authority of doing that to the town administrator without having to have it formally listed as line charts. And I think Troy did an excellent job putting this together, and I would hope that you agree that this meets the needs of the town.
The only question I have, the treasurer and deputy treasurer are not elected anymore, they're appointed. Right, am I right?
Correct.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that would need to move forward.
That's right, too.
Treasurer
Thank you.
appoints you, but treasurer's not
She's-
elected in this town? No?
Not anymore.
Oh,
Right,
Well, it
thank
was
you.
until we had a legal event, and then we
okay.
Thank
changed our
you.
way of doing things.
Yep, no, that,
Yeah, and I've not, we just kind of wrapped this up today, and under the fire department, police department, I'm not 100% confident that those are the divisions they have, but those are common divisions. but I-
again, it's a draft, and it was just so that you could,
Yeah.
you know,
I think that makes sense.
There would be, I guess, if, in concept, if the board, agrees with this, and we go forward and get input from department heads, the only change would be really under the finance. Because I think some of those positions, well, for example, I'm the welfare director. Donna, my assistant, does all the work, but I do the final sign-off. It's not clear, I don't know, in job description and everything, if the finance director supervises all of those employees. But that's the discussion we've kind of been having. And then I also did realize that planning board assistant is missing.
Right.
And that's another discussion point.
so if we,
Other than that, it's pretty,
yeah, if we work, with these, I mean, I would like to know personally, if you think, if you're okay with the concept of where we're going with it.
No.
Yeah.
I think it depends to me on several different issues. Number one, if we have an issue in one of the departments that we have to address, who addresses that? The town administrator or the Board of Selectmen?
It's up to the Board of Selectmen. If you want the town administrator to handle it,
We can direct them. or
you
hand
can
them off.
direct him to do that. If the board wants to handle it, they're the direct governing body and policymakers. The board can do that. It's totally up to the Board of Selectmen.
So in this particular case, the town administrator would have absolutely nobody reporting to them, correct?
No, this allows for the Board of Selectmen to have that because they go up through the board and over to the town administrator. Because the Board of Selectmen is the policy.
That's not the way I read this, though. The way I read this is that the Board of Selectmen has reporting to it, all of these organizations. And then the town administrator has only reportability to the board.
Well, he does anyway. He doesn't report to the department head.
But my point is that none of the other organizations report to the administrator. What I'm worried about is having the town administrator lose operational authority and responsibility for some of these organizations.
I appreciate what you're saying, but this allows the board to
Delegate that to them.
delegate that to him. If you were to put it in the chart, you'd be making it a town manager position.
Could you do the idea, I think I talked about it last time, the idea of a dotted line? So in the sense that fire, police, you know, that all makes sense to go up to the Board of Selectmen because of the RSA's and the governing laws. Town administrator can have, you know, finance to be dotted line up from a, you know, it gets back to the day-to-day management part of it, right?
Right.
Because the last thing you want to have happen is that our building and health inspector, because he no longer shows his reporting under the town administrator, comes to us for everything and wants to sit down and talk to us about everything.
The only thing I was saying, this is only an org chart. The thing is, by policy of the board, you can put a policy out
Sure.
that department heads are to report first to the town administrator.
You know,
We could use.
you know what you
those
could do?
also.
If you took the Litchfield Community Television, and you moved it where finance is, and you moved the whole finance group to the far right, could the finance group just be connected to the town administrator?
The problem is, it's inferring that that's the only group that is. See,
But then
my
I
whole
would still,
point,
I would still be connected to the Board of Selectmen, but the only way the finance group could get to the Board of Selectmen is through me. And the selectmen could only get through me.
but as a selectman, I would think, I would be comfortable with having all of these departments go to you first. That's what the whole point of hiring a town administrator was.
I hate to say it, but when you have an administrator, it all goes through the selectmen, and the administrator is like our assistant. When you have a manager, everything funnels through the manager, then goes to the selectmen. We've always ran like we had a manager. We don't run like we have an administrator.
Correct, and that's the decision of the board.
That's the way I've always seen it.
Right. Yeah, you said that the last meeting.
And I never had a problem with it. It's just, it is what it is.
So Troy, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I worked with Brent and
I know you work with Brent, but what are
totally-
your thoughts on it?
no, with the way Brent explained it, that I would not have direct supervision over those departments unless the Board of Selectmen delegated that authority to me. So I was thinking that like in the finance, in the job description of the finance director, is that director going to, you say, who's your supervisor? Is the supervisor the town administrator? And then when you write the finance director's job description, she's responsible for supervising the bookkeeper, the payroll clerk, it just trickles
See, it
down.
was just in the big scheme of things, everybody reports to the board. The operation of the town, the reality of it, as far as I'm concerned, if you hire a person that you're comfortable with, that's competent, then you cede a lot of the operational issues to that person, because number one, he's trained, number two, he's here on a day-to-day basis, and number three, it makes sense. So that's why I wasn't tying that, so that you have that option. And really, the fire chief's no different than finance LCTV. If you want the town administrator to take care of the finance, building and health, solid waste, you just say that. You tell the employees this, by policy, that all issues go through the town administrator first and get presented to the board. If you don't want to do that, then fine, by policy, you say, come directly to the Board of Selectmen. That doesn't make sense to me, we're not here during the day.
So Troy, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm fine with it as presented,
Okay.
no problem. As long as it's, clarified as to who, again, it's just that group, the finance group, who's the finance director reporting to.
Now, what is the interpretation of the Board of Selectmen in terms of all of these people who are, quote, now reporting to us? Do they work through Troy, or do they come direct to us? Go ahead, Steve.
I would have Troy right below the selectmen and everybody funnel through him.
That's what I would have, but
But,
that's just me.
but.
That's what I said last
The
week.
way a town administrator is defined
Correct.
is not to have everyone report through him.
But we can,
So this chart is laid out correct for a town administrator.
Right.
It's not laid out correct for the way we use them.
but you do that by policy, Steve. You can do that.
See,
the difference?
my point is would have been to put Troy reporting to the Board of Selectmen, everybody, reporting through to Troy with dotted line up to the Board of Selectmen for some of the offices such as fire chief, police chief, that type of thing. That's just me.
No, that's probably another way.
And that's because of their functions of their office, I'll call it. Same thing with the elected officials, dotted line to Board of Selectmen. And dotted line to me in that case would be from a fiscal responsibility point of view. We share the requirements, or we share the fiscal, responsibility for even elected budgets.
I guess the only thing that really confuses me though is who doesn't see it that way?
I can give you some names right here, but
Because if we all feel as though that's the way it should be, why doesn't everybody else know that?
I'm just trying to get it clarified
Put a
because,
policy.
because here's my concern. My concern is I've been in meetings where I said, you know, X, Y, and Z has to be addressed, and nobody could tell me who, why reported to.
Well, we're talking about a Pacific, okay, but that's not even, that's below Troy.
That may be below Troy, but this board has to make a decision on who's responsible for dealing with those situations that come up in all organizations. And by doing that, what I mean is that the Board of Selectmen has to either do it themselves, which is fine, or they have to ask the administrator to do it as part of his duties. I have no problem either way. I just want to make sure it's clear who has the authority and responsibility.
So I would suggest one change, I guess, based on this kind of thread. The administrative assistant, who is a resource to the whole town hall side,
Administrative assistant, yes?
that should report to the town administrator directly. And the reason why I say that is because ultimately, that person is supporting all the departments, not necessarily reporting to one department specifically. Make a report to the town administrator. The finance/HR person, that person owns assessing and AP. Well, actually, assessing belongs under.
Right, see, this is where you start to muddle it, John. If you leave it, if you leave the template like it is, and then by policy handle,
But as organizationally, the finance director instructs assigns tasks to the AP payroll person.
right, and that's okay.
That person belongs to
See,
finance.
I look at this organizational chart as part of a general policy that will be the first policy of the town that's gonna detail out who's responsible for whom.
Well, the only change
That's my
that I
thought.
see that needs to be made, other than the treasurer and the deputy treasurer, is the welfare. Because by contract, we made Troy our welfare director.
Good point, yeah.
Yeah, that's, well, the administrator is helping.
Even
Yeah, you could
even
put it
though
off to the
by
right.
policy, because we
Right.
hired him by contract to be the welfare director, that's the only reason I think that needs to change.
Mhm.
He can delegate where it goes and
Yeah,
who does.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I agree.
And the only other thing that has to be changed on this is the, planning board,
Yeah.
Right.
excuse me, the planning board,
And the treasurer too.
assistant, whatever you wanna call Joan.
So are you comfortable if we make those changes, voting on it next meeting?
Am I comfortable? When I got into this, I said, I don't really care how it looks. My point is that I want to make sure that we all agree that this is the organization of the town.
So I'm gonna ask one more question if I can.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead, Steve, I was kidding.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
Where we have the road agent under appointed officials, that's kind of a tough one.
I know.
Because the road agent is the highway department.
Yep.
who is in charge of the highway, so how don't they work as one? Because it's always been as one, so I'm
think-
only asking it just so that it's
No,
clear.
because it's funny you ask that, because I dealt with the same situation where we were, and there was no clear-cut answer. There was nowhere you could, this was the best way to put it, because the road agent may not always be your full-time employee.
But the road agent will always run the highway department.
Will always run the highway
Why not
department.
move it- Why not move it to the highway department? Because it is an appointed position by the board, so isn't the fire chief and so isn't the police chief.
Actually, yeah.
So move it under, up to above the highway.
That's a good point. Yeah, where it says highway, Troy,
So highway
Yeah.
would be below
put road
that.
agent.
I'll tell you the reason I put it off to the side was because, it's my understanding that road agents, when you've been appointed as a road agent, there's certain state laws that, you know, the rights that you have. Selectmen don't have
Same
any
thing with
say over.
No,
But you, like you're saying, the police chief has certain rights, and the
Right.
fire chief has certain
right.
rights.
And the thing is, Troy,
So-
that with the road agent is different than the fire and the police, because it does say in there that the road agent does follow the policy set by the Board of Selectmen. That's what's different than the other. Road agent does have to work with the Board of Selectmen.
Which would leave the appointed officials, just those boards and commissions which do have certain statutory
Right.
rights that selectmen aren't able to.
I am able to
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
into, right, which is the point.
So we'll move the, road agent,
Any other changes? Okay.
I'm sure if we talk about it long enough. yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else on this, or we exhausted this?
We exhausted it,
Moving on.
because I'm exhausted.
Thank you again, Troy. You did a nice job.
yeah, it was fun. Just can't figure out how to get the line straight.
Well, hey.
Move the box above it too.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, street name acceptance to Graylock Circle. The board should have seen in the folder a map of the proposed open space development and the proposed name of Graylock Circle, which I believe is what is being proposed. Which one of these is going to be Graylock Circle?
Right there.
One down lower right or left, man.
Now, what are you asking us to approve? Just Graylock Circle? Or are you asking us to approve
Only-
Horizon?
Only
Livingston?
Graylock Circle.
Okay.
And it has been, it's been reviewed and approved by the fire department, that name.
So there's no conflicts in terms of Warlock versus Graylock?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there a motion by the board?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second, is there a second?
Yep.
We've got a motion and a second. Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries 500. NHMA legislative policy recommendations.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Are there any members of the board, Mr. Lemire, seeing as how you're a member of the board of directors, are there any things you want to cover on this, or big items that you need any help on?
No,
up with
only
the
if
next,
there's
this
anything.
legislative session?
Remember, the municipal association is really, when they do the legislative policy process, it's geared towards assisting the cities and towns. And, you know, I'm just wondering if there's any issues that any of you have before this is brought to final vote in September.
Well, let's see here. Support the continued existence of the Police Standards and Training Council.
Mhm.
I have my own thoughts on that, but
I'm
having seen the
sure
financial
that you
aspects
do.
of it.
Well, apparently this year is at least to get them through this year until, and I guess they're working through trying to set up a permanent funding source for it. So,
Uh, Can you explain to me building plans under RSA 91A to exempt them?
Mr. Chairman, I could have had, with prior requests, gotten you background information, but they want to add the exemption, discussions with legal counsel. Also include discussions about correspondence provided.
Yeah, I know, but I'm talking on, it says.
Oh, I'm sorry, under 91A.
To specifically add building plans, construction drawings contained within a building permit file or building plans, construction drawings submitted as part of a building permit application projects as an exempt record under the statute.
Right. And if I remember correctly, there was issues of competitors going in and getting these plans and preempting, it's a competition, anti-competition problem. And they've been finding out that people with their intentions weren't as honorable as you'd like to think, using the building plans to, I should feather their own nests accordingly. So they wanted to make sure that those are exempted, especially during the process until everything is complete. What?
Can you give me the folders?
I didn't know what the background on that, but when I read that one,
Yeah.
I didn't know the background, but I made the assumption that
Yeah.
maybe
I
someone was
have-
having a discussion about terrorists and just general safety
Yeah,
concerns.
I have background information, like I said, I can bring and share with you. I just would have liked a little heads up, and I could have had these answers for you.
It's not, the time-sensitive issue here is, my understanding is if this town wanted to submit its own floor policy, they
Right.
need that by August 12th.
Yep.
The conference will be September 23rd, and I guess we appoint someone to go and represent the town.
Yep. Mr. Byron has represented the town before. You were up there once.
I'm a selectman, yeah.
You were up there once.
Up where?
Legislative Policy Conference.
I've been up there twice, but,
Fine.
okay, on the legislative policy conference, yes. But, not this year.
Right.
Anybody has any issues with on this, or any additional, they have the famous classic perambulation.
Yeah, I just saw that.
I didn't see that.
And I certainly can get any background information to members. If you specifically want some, please let me know.
Okay, if there's hearing none, I am assuming that everybody's happy with what's on here. Right? Do we need to,
You can leave it on the agenda for,
well, do we need to, do anything by a certain date or time?
well.
Do we need to appoint
the
somebody
first-
to
The
represent
first
the
deadline
board?
is August 12th if we want our own floor policy.
Okay,
And then we just need to designate a person that will represent the town.
what's the
It
date?
looks like that, there's no actual
September-
deadline, September 23rd, you can
23rd.
just show up.
There'll be a voting person, and the town administrator is eligible to do that if the board so desires.
Not according to the way you've got the organization, never mind.
Oh, for God's sake. Here he goes again. It's getting late, you better hurry up, because at the end of a meeting, you start to get cuckoo.
You start?
Trust me, I've been cuckoo before the meeting even started. Okay, anything else on that? Hearing none, we'll move on to PFOA update. Waterline extension update. Have you heard anything, Troy, at all?
So I met last week, I came back to work Thursday, and Lou Karen had a meeting set up with folks from Pennachuck. And then Lou came to my office and said, "Are you coming to this meeting?" I'm like, "Well, I didn't know," but and he said, "You should come in." So Lou was just meeting with Pennachuck. They were still going over the final details of the construction plans. And they were able to resolve, all the outstanding issues. It sounded like to me the Pennachuck was trying to get this thing wrapped up by the end of this week. I think that's their goal. I'm not sure if they'll meet it. And at that point in time, once they've got to that point, they hand it over to St. Gobain. They say, "Here's the construction drawings, and here's our cost estimate."
I thought they were supposed to do that by the 15th.
That did not happen on the 15th. So,
I'm shocked.
and so that's on the Pennachuck, that process. The town, the Board of Selectmen, has written a letter to St. Gobain requesting a meeting to discuss several items. And all I did receive an email just stating that in receipt of the letter, and they're trying to coordinate with their staff, see if they can get back to me with a few dates, but kind of difficult because of vacations. That's it.
Has the St. Gobain Board of Directors met in studious conference in the country of France to discuss?
I am unaware.
You weren't there.
I was not there.
Okay. Okay. Should we follow up with St. Gobain's, asking them when they're gonna select their dates for possibly meeting? I'm not sure how long it's been outstanding, that's why I'm asking.
About 2 weeks now, is it?
Yeah. You could tickle them with another,
Email?
yeah. That'll be great. Okay.
And just, I know we mentioned at the last meeting, it'll be out in the newspapers, but next Tuesday, August 3rd,
It's a Wednesday.
another meeting. This is
Is it Tuesday? Wednesday is August 3rd.
I'm sorry, it's August 3rd,
So
That's
it's
a Wednesday.
Wednesday night.
Wednesday night. And that's a state, New Hampshire DS is holding a public hearing. So other communities are invited, and they'll be basically holding a public hearing about the standard that they would like to set for, at 70 parts per trillion for the lifetime exposure.
Okay. Anything else? So I guess we're good to move on to reports, administrator reports. Troy?
The thing I have is, one, I want to thank all the staff. We've had, as you all know, the weather's been a little bit crazy here in the last week, and the staff, fire department, police department, highway, have all responded to down trees and power outages and done, as I understand, a really good job responding to that. Jack was down at the rec facility today, and they were dealing with a tree that was leaning on power lines and telephone lines, and it sounded like it was pretty complicated, but they finally got the tree down, and they'll be picking it up tomorrow. The chief contacted me, the police chief, and he hasn't started the process yet, but before he starts the process of recruiting the next captain, he was wondering just sort of some direction from the board on, are you expecting to have a contract like we currently do with the current captain? And if there would be, a salary range that would be agreed to, because as of right now, in our personnel policy, there is no salary range for the police captain. So we didn't know how we wanted to have us sort of start that. No, it's the lieutenant's there, but the captain was never added. And I just don't know if, I mean, that's gonna be, the biggest question is gonna be the salary.
We don't have captains, we have that one, call what you want, second in charge, just change it from lieutenant to captain and make sure the range fits.
Yeah, so I don't know, I think, I guess, working with the chief, would you like us to do, a quick salary survey to see if that, where the lieutenant is assigned right now, is it comparable for the captain position or not?
Yeah, just make sure that's a second command in the department, not a captain lieutenant structure. And I think ultimately, if I recall, our goal in that position is to have an 8% split difference between the
That's right. It's in the-
sergeants and from a command perspective. So that's really the only metric I thought we had.
Yeah.
I don't recollect the 8%. I recollect the 8% between, well, actually between the sergeants.
Yeah, that was in the current contract.
Yeah, because what happened when the sergeants got their bump because of the union, when the union did, it filled that gap, and that's why we took the action for it.
Well, a couple points on this. To me, I think making an analysis of comparables to try and get a range for captain, lieutenant, whatever we're gonna call it, is fine. I also think that we need to be sure that the chief understands that the contract is between the Board of Selectmen and this individual, and not between the chief and this individual. And I'm saying that now because I'm trying to avoid problems later. Does the board agree with that?
That's how we wanted to do
Yes.
it today, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the chief's concern, is how do you, I guess, how do you want him to start the recruitment process? So, do you get to that point where he makes a selection, and then at that point, the terms and conditions, salary and benefits are between the Board of Selectmen and the candidate?
Right.
And that's what you're saying, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear as to,
And I think,
what I'd be concerned about is all of a sudden we get a contract given to us that's already negotiated,
Right.
if you will.
In all fairness, it's hard to sit down in the job interview. At the very least, what he needs is a salary range. to be
No,
able-
I perfectly
So
understand.
we'll come back with a salary range, and then he can go and do
I
his thing.
purposely understand, I fully understand why he
Yeah.
wants that information, and it makes perfect sense to me.
Okay.
Okay, anything else, Troy, on
That's it.
administrative reports?
That's all.
Selectmen reports, are there any selectmen reports?
Yes.
Well,
I, realizing that most everyone was out of town Monday night and Tuesday, Troy was on vacation, you were out, members of the board. Tuesday morning, I did check with all of the department heads to see, if they needed any, if there was anything that we could do to assist them, just to make sure that, in Troy's absence, that they knew that at least someone was contacting them to make sure that they were all set, and if they needed anything to give us a buzz. Also, which night was the public hearing? I think Tuesday night?
Tuesday night.
I did attend that, and I met Mr. Myers, the new Director of Health and Human Services. Also, the new epidemiologist was there. They made a very good presentation. Senator Susi was there, Representative Bohm. In any event, it was quite well attended. They did pass out forms for blood testing, and several people availed themselves to that. That's all I have.
okay, any other selectmen reports?
I had a planning board meeting on that Tuesday night, and since Brent said he was doing the other one, I went to the planning board. I guess you could say I had a presentation of the wastewater.
Mhm.
And I told them that it needed to be incorporated in future ventures, we'll say, developments. And, yeah. So they're well apprised of it at this point, and
Good.
they were very eager to read through the 81 pages.
Yeah, I give a.
Okay. John, anything?
The only other thing was the recognition, they were here this afternoon, or this evening to talk about it, so that was it.
Okay. Kevin?
Nope, budget meeting on Thursday night.
Okay. Items removed from consent, there were none. Is there any other business? Is there any other business the board needs to discuss? John? You had something that you brought up, you said to me earlier, before the meeting started, you wanted to talk about?
I did?
Yeah.
The generator.
Did you want to adjourn?
The generator? You
Oh,
said
I
you
thought it
wanted
was
to
the
discuss
bat
about
box.
the generator or the bat box, I
Oh,
forget which.
That box.
Are you trying to get me started again?
No, seriously, you said you wanted to talk about the generator.
I was talking about
You
it.
said it was surging or something.
Yeah, we had to, Kevin came in, so during the event that we had this past weekend, it seemed to be coming on and off generator throughout that cycle, which says to me something's wrong. His power wasn't clicking on or off, it was off, but, we're gonna check it tonight when we lose power again, see what happens. So Kevin's looking at it,
So you're good?
yeah, unless it fails.
Okay, then do you wanna go on to the bat box that Tony's,
I would just wish it'd get out of this damn building.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Stop
We
it.
have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion
Oh,
carries
you should say that.
5-0-0. The next meeting of the Board of Selectmen is going to be on August 8th